Hey, this is Netty with Rocket Powered Sound, and in this video I'm going to be showing you guys my remake of Fred Again Adore You. So this is what it sounds like. And so I'm just going to be taking you through like all the layers and like how I made each sound. And that way you guys can like, take these little elements and like apply them to your own music. Or if you want to make, the song yourself or something like that, then you can do that as well. So let's just start with the synths. So we have this main synth. And let me turn off the sidechain so you guys can hear it a little bit better. Kind of like a neat little synth, does an interesting little pattern. So I just like, the way I made this is first off I remade the synth. So what this is like, it's a saw wave plug, like super simple, like there's no effects or anything. It's just a saw wave plug with 16 voices with a delay on it. So if I turn off the delay, you can kind of hear it there. And then with the delay, and so the thing about this delay is it's on triplets, so I find that kind of interesting, and it kind of adds for like a unique like texture to like the synth. So it's not necessarily that this song isn't in like a triplet grid or anything. So like that's not really like why this is in triplets, but I think if I turn off the triplet mode, you'll kind of hear it becomes like a bit too rhythmic almost. Like if I turn on the sidechain and then play this back. It just kind of, it feels a bit boring, like even on these other modes. And so like, I find it kind of interesting. He went for like the triplet mode. And by the way you do that in Ableton is you can kind of click on like any of these. And then if you like turn this up, it'll like swing it. And if you turn it up all the way, it'll become triplets. But yeah, it kind of like fills up more space this way instead of occupying just like the on beat like notes like this. Or it's just like very rigid, like you kind of get these like gaps just completely filled in, and I think that's really cool. So it adds a really nice texture to it. And then I just like took the stereo down just a little bit because I suppose it was a bit too wide otherwise. It's a bit much this, so I just took it down a bit, and that's it. That's a really simple synth. The MIDI for this is kind of complex, so it's like this long. You can kind of take a look if you want to like copy it or something like that. This is the MIDI. Yeah, I don't know how, like why it's like it sounds kind of wacky without like the delay on it. Not really something I would think to write myself, but I think it's cool regardless that he wrote this. So yeah, that's a little intro synth, and that like plays over the drop. And then we have this, which is just a very, very simple, like this is like literally all it is. It's just a sine wave patch that I made in Operator. What this is, yeah, it's just a sine wave, and then I added a volume envelope to it like this. So I added 2 seconds of decay, 2.4 seconds of decay, and a little bit of release, 700 milliseconds. And then I added a pitch envelope. So without it sounds like this, which is just like, sine wave. But then with a pitch envelope, it kind of adds that like attack, right? So without, with. So that sounds kind of nice. You can maybe kind of hear it in the background there. And then we have a piano. So I used Keyzone for this. So let me take off all the effects because it's kind of a lot. Let me delete the ones I'm not using and then turn these off. So this is what it sounds like stock, and let me show you the piano that I use as well. So this is Keyzone. It's just the classic Keyzone piano. I think I turned the release down a lot and I turned the reverb completely off. So that way it's a little bit more snappy. Yeah, pretty simple. And then what I did is I did a lot of EQing on this because like to get that like kind of like cheap piano sound, you kind of have to EQ it in a certain way. So I was like, okay, like I'm trying to get like kind of achieve that. So the first thing I did is I dipped the mids down like a lot and boosted the high ends a lot. So you kind of hear that like cheapness already. And then I added like a boost to like the range that I dipped. I could have theoretically just like boosted this back up, but like because this curve is like already kind of like harder to work with because of like this huge peak, I decided to just like use another EQ for it instead of like going in for like this and trying to make this sound better. So yeah, that's that. That boosts like the mids a little bit, makes it feel a bit more full. And then I added a reverb, which you can like barely hear. Yeah, very simple stuff. I guess to just fill in like a tiny bit of background space. I literally can't even hear it, but you know, that's besides the point. And then a delay. So this is not actually like a traditional delay. This is a Haas effect. So what a Haas effect is, if you're not familiar, it's when you delay the left and right ear signals by like a certain amount, it'll like create stereo. So like let me show you what I mean. So if I have like these like linked up like this, right? So they're at the same exact time. Like, and I mono this. It's just a mono piano, right? Like pretty simple. But if I unlink these and like let's say I delay the right channel by 20 milliseconds or something, a very small amount, it's stereo. Suddenly it's stereo, which is a very cool effect. So this is great for if you want to like add stereo to things that are not stereo. And so that's what I did here is I just added like 17 milliseconds of stereo. And when you do this, by the way, make sure you turn off like any filter or like ping pong delay and turn the feedback all the way down. That way, like, you're basically just, like, delaying it, but, like, you're literally just, like, taking the signal and then delaying it by 1 millisecond, and then, like, in the left channel, and then 17 milliseconds in the right channel. It's, like, that simple. And, yeah, dry wet needs to be all the way up, otherwise you get kind of a weird effect. But, yeah, that's what I did there. And then I added this sub bass, which is a hilariously simple like operator patch again. So what I did for this one is I just took the like oscillator A. What I did is I went to the oscillator tab right here, and so this is where you can like input like harmonics. So if you don't know what that means, let me show you. So like every sound that like oscillates, or every sound that you like play in like a synth usually has harmonics. So if I like play just a sine wave, right? You can see this is a sine wave, right, on an EQ. When I go to the oscillator tab though, and like you see this, like this is just like to zoom in, right? So I just zoom into the 16. I can start like drawing harmonics and you'll see the sound, you'll hear the sound change and you'll see the sound change. So like for example, if I add like a peak here, you'll see it show up here. If I add another peak here, it'll show up right there, right? So I can just keep going. Right, you could draw a sound out this way. And so that's what I did for the sub. So like when you play this in the sub range, and let me delete these, right, you just have a normal sub here. Maybe you don't hear that if you're on phone speakers. Turn that up a bit. What I did is I just did like kind of this, like, right? And this just like is a nice little sub. It's a very simple sub, and that's all I did. And it just helps. It helps you be a bit like intentional about like what kind of sub you're making instead of just kind of like distorting it to get it like sitting nicer or something like that. You can just shape the sub as you want it without like distorting anything or like going overboard with like processing or anything like that. Yeah, that's that. Sounds like this. Oh, and by the way, let me show you the piano MIDI because I didn't do that. So this is the piano MIDI right here. You want to copy that? We'll go a bit more into depth on like how like this song is kind of written in a minute, so don't worry about that. And then lastly, in the like instruments section, I have this little like weird string thing that just kind of plays every whatever you want to call it. So I don't know exactly why that's there. I mean, it's there, so you know, we're not gonna complain. But this is like a random like default Ableton preset that I just found. Like I just typed in like guitar into like the search bar, and then like I found like this one, and it just like sounded the closest to anything I could get. Did some wacky EQing to get it to kind of sound as close to the original as possible, and then I just added a bit of reverb. I also panned it to the right a bit because it was panned to the right in the original, so I did that as well. And that's that. And next, let's move on to the drums. So all of these drums are from the Feel Again bundle from Rocket Powered Sound. Sound like this. So the Feel Again bundle is a Fred Again inspired sample pack, so that it's very fitting for this remake. So let me show you guys where I got these. So we have the snake kick. We have the regard hi-hats, the regard, which one is this? The closed hat. But I think all of these have like no processing on them, by the way. Except this one, I guess. Fair enough. I don't know why I did this. This is kind of a weird, wacky. I don't know exactly what happened there, but I queued that one. But anyway, this is a regard hat. We have one clap. So this is the diamonds clap. Super quiet. And then we have the CTRL snare, or the control snare. Sounds like this. And then together that with a kick, it sounds like that. I just have some sidechaining going on this channel. And then right here we have the Tonight perk loop, 128 beats per minute. I believe this is also from the Feel Again bundle. It is from the Feel Again bundle. I did something kind of interesting on these. I'll get to this in a second with like the processing. And then I just have a perk loop here. And then I have, this is the Reaper perk loop. And then I have the Peril perk loop here. Yeah, pretty simple stuff. So yeah, let me talk about the processing on these a bit. So just like solo, this is what the perk loops sound like. You can kind of hear it's like all over the place a bit, like panning wise, and maybe a bit rhythmically as well. So what I find, so what I did is, so like initially I like loaded in these perk loops and I was like, these sound way too robotic. Like they just sound so robotic, so like unnatural. And I was like, okay, like how can I change this to make it feel less robotic, more human? So what I did is so like without processing, it sounds like this. You can kind of hear it just sounds a bit robotic, right? So what I did, I added an erosion to make it a bit more noisy. It's kind of subtle. I EQ'd it out a bit so that it's like more, what do you call it, gentle in the ears. I frequency shifted it way up. So it was like this originally, which was a bit lower than I wanted it to be. So I frequency shifted it up. And then I added an auto pan. So this is where it gets kind of interesting. So what I did is I put it on the noise mode, right? So like normally you would go for like something like this, right? To like auto pan something. What the heck happened here? I don't know what happened with the visualizer, but essentially what I did is I took these noise auto pans, which like kind of like pans it like left and right, but like in a completely unpredictable like manner. Sometimes it'll kind of duck the volume down entirely, like sometimes it'll be like, you know, super really loud in like one ear or the other ear, and so like it makes it sound very natural because that's kind of how like human, like if you were to take a shaker or something and you were like, you know, like shake it around, like it would kind of do that. It would kind of make that, like, it would have that quality where like sometimes it's a bit to the right, sometimes it's a bit to the left, like other times it's like a bit quieter, etc. Right? So it's a good way to like make it natural, but it kind of only works in this setting because you have like the shaker, so like it wouldn't always work like this. But I figured that because it's like this like 16th note pattern and it's kind of like more quiet in the back, it works out to kind of like let it be a bit messy maybe. So yeah, it's the same here, and I think same here as well. Yep. So one thing I also did is I panned these two loops left and right so that they're like super stereo, so they kind of contrast each other nicely. And yeah, that's kind of it. Let's go into the processing of the hi-hat. So what I did here is, I guess, I don't remember even doing this, but like what I did is I EQ'd this hi-hat, like, this is what it sounded like originally. I guess I like wasn't happy with the timbre of it, and so like compared to the original song, and so like I decided to just like EQ this a bit in a way that like you get like it to match it to the original bit. But I also like recognize that if I just EQ it like this, I would lose out on like all this high end. So I like just added the original back in to fill in that part. So yeah, you kind of get like best of both worlds kind of situation. It's kind of weird. On this clap, Right here, I have it super quiet, but I just added some reverb. And that's basically it. So yeah, super simple. And that's kind of it. So let's now dive into some of like the music theory and like arrangement stuff that I found kind of interesting. Yeah, of course I talked about the intro ARP a little bit already, with the MIDI pattern being kind of weird, in my opinion. Kind of like unique. Now what I found while writing this melody thing, I found it actually like really interesting, like the notes that he chose. So if you take a look here, there's like only like 3 notes that, or 3 or 4 notes that, if you, depending on how you count it, that actually happen. So you have the C, you have the B, and then the G. So and they can vary in octaves, but like there's the same note. So you have this. They're all the same notes, right? It's just 2 different octaves. So like what this does is it like you have like the C, and the C is the root note. So we're in C major, right? So if you establish the root note really strongly, like you do it in this song, right? You get this like really like stable, like warm kind of feeling, which I imagine in a song where it's about like adoring someone, you would want that kind of feeling to be evoked. So yeah, pretty simple. It's just like I think like what the goal probably was with like writing this was probably to get like make like a really interesting texture by adding these like really sporadic like notes everywhere. So like if I were like, the only reason I would personally do this, like write like a MIDI pattern like this, is if I were specifically trying to create like an interesting like pattern using like these specific notes, and like using like delays to make that kind of like a pad almost. But then with like an interesting like texture, so kind of an in between like a melody and like a pad. That's kind of like what I imagine was like the thought process here on Fred Again's like end. So yeah, we got the C, and we have the dominant, which is like kind of like, you can almost think of it as like a second root note. So in the case of C major, it's the G. So like this is also just a very, very stable note that if you like hold this note, it'll just kind of feel like very strong and like grounded, and like, I don't know, I'm using very arbitrary words here, but maybe that makes sense to you. And then yeah, you just have the B for some extra like warmth, a bit of like character, so that it's not just like a really stale like if I were to remove these. Like that would also be a bit boring, right? So you add these for like extra spice. Just adds, it makes it sound a bit more like human, I guess, which is nice. So yeah, and then that's the little like ARP thing, like kind of like some observation that I made about that. And let's get into the piano. We'll talk about the chords a bit. So we start off on the G chord, and we move into like a C chord kind of, which is like this, but it's just an inversion. We just stay on like the G here, kind of, sort of, if you kind of want to count it like that. And then we have this like, we have this this D minor chord. But then to make it a bit more happy, a bit less like stressful, because this is a pretty stressful chord, right? To make it a little bit less stressful and like, oh no, the world is ending. You kind of add this like C, which again is the root note of the song, which just makes it feel a bit more upbeat, and that's kind of where you want to be. And then this is like just the chord pitched up too, so this is the same exact chord, same exact principles. You just add the D on top to make it feel a bit more like bit more like not as serious, you know what I mean? So that's what's going on there. And then right here we have a really cool chord. We have an F major 7 chord, I think. I don't know music theory that well in terms of like saying it, but like essentially what this is like it's the classic chord. I'm sure you've heard that before, like that kind of chord, but then just without the A in the middle, because the interesting thing about that is that the reason there's no A is because if there was an A, then it would feel more serious. Because what this is if you take the relative minor of C major, right? So you have C major, which is, you have all the white notes. If you want to make it a minor scale but use the same like notes, that's called the relative minor. And so what you do is you start on A and you just press all the white notes. So this will now form a minor scale. So if I play this, oops, wait, let me restart. Now you have a minor scale. So if you add that A in the middle here, then it feels so much more serious because you're including the root note of A minor, which is like the same key as C major, technically speaking. Like it's the same notes. So that makes it sound too serious, and so you just don't include that, and then it feels less serious. And so yeah, that they just the note there is just kind of held. Pretty simple stuff. And then just the bass line is just following the root note. And then again with this little guitar thing, this is playing a C. So this is just playing the root note of the song to make it, again, feel more homey, a bit more like lighthearted, and I think that's great. And that's kind of it. We have some pretty weak like side chaining going on here. Like, it's nothing crazy. Because you don't want like a super strong like pumping effect here. Like that sounds cool, but it's like that's a bit strong, a bit over energetic, you know what I mean? So I don't know. I think this song overall is really well put together. I love this song. I hope you guys like it too. So yeah, that's about it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it educational. Be sure to check out the Feel Again bundle with a link in the description, and I hope to see you guys in another video. Bye bye.